Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh, the Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Ripp, Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Ripp live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.
Hurry is one of the not talked about but major issues, like the issue beneath all of so many of the other issues. I think we're all trying to figure out how in the world do we follow Jesus or even just live a healthy human life.
And welcome to the Christy Wright Show, where faith meets personal development so you can have a bigger faith and a better life. I'm so excited because today we are talking about 3 things that you need in your life right now, whether you realize it or not. And then I got to sit down with my good friend and author of one of my favorite books, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, John Mark Comer. And y'all, he is brilliant when it comes to slowing down, stopping the rushing in your life, and resting so you can feel balanced. But first, let's go ahead and talk about what are these 3 things that you need in your life right now. I want to first start by highlighting something that you may do. I'm guessing you do it because I do it and because everyone I see everywhere does it. Here's a common scenario. Let's say that you are going to the doctor's office or you're going somewhere in a building that has multiple floors, maybe your work, and you get in the elevator and the elevator doors close. What do? It's about a half a second before you reach in your purse and you pull out your phone and you look at your phone and you just scroll your phone until approximately 3 seconds later, ding, you're at your floor. Now, that seems innocent. It's not a terrible thing, but here's what's interesting. I think there's something else going on in the fact that we have a 3-second elevator ride and we feel the need to reach for our phone. Is it the addictive nature of our phone that we're used to picking it up over and over and over again? Sure, that's definitely at play. But I think there's something else going on. I think that we have trained our mind to be addicted to input. Nonstop, all day, every day, we are seeking input. We've got information, we've got the TV on, we're talking to people. Even if there is one moment of silence, we reach for our phone. In an elevator ride, that takes 3 seconds. We reach for our phone. We can't just sit there and stare at the elevator doors. Maybe you do this in the car at a stoplight, maybe in traffic. What's going on? Are we really that incapable of being quiet, of being still, of not thinking? I think there's something going on at play, and it brings to mind for me these 3 things that we need because I see it in my life where I'm constantly seeking input. I'm constantly seeking information. I'm constantly thinking. My brain is working so hard from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. And then what else do? Well, we skimp on sleep. We go to bed later. We rush from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. And oh, by the way, probably aren't fitting in our quiet time with God. We give up on these things that are important to us and we miss out on these things that are vital to feeling balanced. And then we wonder why we're exhausted. We wonder why we feel empty. That's why I want to take a minute to remind you of 3 things that you need if you're going to feel balanced, and certainly 3 things that you need if you're going to have any chance of being the best version of yourself. The first is this: your mind needs rest. Your mind needs to be able to stop. It needs to be able to shut down, to not think, to not run 100 miles an hour, to not be processing all the input from your phone, to not be thinking about all the things on your to-do list. It needs to be able to stop. Now, if you're like me and like a lot of women, where you're used to your mind going all day, every day, where you've got 100 different scenarios playing out every minute, this is going to take some work. For those of you that are entrepreneurs and you've got 100 ideas a minute, I hear you, I see you, I am you. It's going to take some work, but you can do it. You can train your mind to stop. It can be something so simple, y'all, that the next time you get in an elevator and you reach for your phone to look at it, you put it back in your pocket. You put it back in your purse and you just stare at the elevator doors. You feeling weird? I know, but it's great because you know what? You're practicing a new skill of letting your mind stop, giving your mind a break, slowing down, having silence, solitude, and letting your mind rest. The first thing that you need that you probably don't have in your busy life is your mind needs a break. The second thing you need in your life is this. Your body needs rest, sleep. Your body has to have sleep to function at optimal capacity. So if you want to run all day, every day and get all those things on your to-do list done, if you want to be happy, if you want to show up for your relationships and your responsibilities, you need sleep to be able to do that. Now, I know you think you're invincible. I do too. You think I can stay up late, I can wake up early, I can just run on hardly any sleep. I'm just like Wonder Woman that can do it all. You know what? You'd be a lot better if you got the sleep that your body needs. When I did research about a year ago, we asked all of the people that participated in my research survey what time on average they went to bed. And do you know what time they went to bed? 11:30. 11:30. And you're waking up with your kids, many of you early in the morning, so you're only getting 5, 6, maybe 7 hours of sleep if you're lucky. And then you run so hard and you wonder why you're exhausted, discouraged, probably a little grumpy if you're honest. I know a lot of times when I am my worst version of myself, it's when I'm tired. I'm impatient, I'm short-tempered, I am frustrated with my husband, with my kids, and not because they've even done anything wrong, but because I'm tired. Decisions feel hard when I'm tired. Life feels overwhelming when I'm tired. But you know what? When I get some rest, and I don't mean you have to go on a sabbatical for 6 months, I mean just one night of 8 hours of sleep. I wake up and I feel refreshed, I feel hopeful, I feel in control, I feel capable of taking on my day, of making those decisions, of being my best for my spouse and my kids. Everything changes when I just get some sleep. And the same is true for you. Your body needs sleep. That is the second thing that you have to have if you're gonna have any hope of feeling balanced or being the best version of yourself. So your mind needs a break. Your body needs sleep. The third thing that you have to have in your life is this. Your soul needs time with God. Now, I know you're thinking like, right, like I hear that, I know that, I should do that. Let's unpack this for a second. Even the idea of soul is like, a super simple topic to just dive into. But let me tell you, when I read the book Soul Keeping by John Ortberg, it highlighted for me this part of ourselves that we often neglect. We don't think about our soul because it's hard to understand. I couldn't even define it for you if I wanted to. But it's a part of who we are. The Bible says we are created with souls, and you know what's so fascinating? Your soul was created for time with God. So when you don't spend time with God, any time with God, whether it's in worship, whether it's reading your Bible, whether it's in a community group, whether it's in church, it doesn't matter what it looks like, okay? Let's not get legalistic here about how you spend time with God. I'm just saying if you don't give your soul what it needs, you're never gonna feel balanced. You're never gonna feel like things are quite right in your world. You're never going to feel like the best version of yourself, and you're certainly not going to feel like the person that God created you to be because you're not spending time with the God that created you in the first place. Whether you like it or not, whether you realize it or not, whether you think you have the time or not, your soul is craving time with its creator. Your soul is craving time with God. These are 3 things that you need in your life right now. Your mind needs a break. Your body needs sleep. And your soul needs time with God. Until you give your mind, body, and soul what they need, you will never feel balanced and you will never feel like the best version of yourself. Make these simple changes. Give your mind a break. Go to bed earlier. That's an easy fix, y'all. Go to bed earlier. Spend even 5-10 minutes with God in the morning. Or maybe in the car in traffic, instead of looking at your phone, you pray. Maybe the next time you get in the elevator, you just stare at the doors. I don't know what it looks like for you, but these simple, small changes can change everything about how you feel balanced, how you feel about yourself, and certainly how you feel in your relationship with God. All right, y'all, I'm so excited because I get to sit down with someone that I have been a fan of for such a long time. You have heard me talk about his book, John Mark Comer. John Mark, thank you for being here.
Yeah, happy to chat. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so I got to start by telling you it's such a testimony story of how much I love your book. So I have a copy of your book that is mine. I read it. I'm rereading it. All of my listeners, viewers have heard me talk about it. I have cited it so many times. The title, in case you have lived in a cave and not heard me talk about this by some chance, it's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's by John Mark Comer, and I get to sit down with him today. Okay, I have a million questions for you because clearly I'm a huge fan. You can tell may be an overcommitter by the fact that this book hit such a nerve with me. And so I just want to start with something super basic. Tell me why you wanted to write this book. Like, where did this start for you?
Oh, it started with pain. You know, the writer David Brooks has this great line about how he's always trying to write himself into a better life.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of truth in that for me, for sure. Yeah, it started with just the pain of, I think we're all trying to figure out how in the world do we follow Jesus or even just live a healthy human life in a world with an iPhone and Wi-Fi and busyness and all the insane stuff in culture right now. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the pastoral call is just to try to pioneer and navigate a way to live deeply in the kingdom of God with Jesus in this kind of a cultural moment. Yeah. And through my journey, I came to the conviction that hurry is one of the not talked about, but major issues, like the issue beneath all of so many of the other issues. And came to start experimenting with a different way of living in my own life. And the book was born out of that over many, many years of experimenting and failing and succeeding and failing again and learning along the way and discovering a whole kind of new way of living.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring that up because before I read this book, I would have never said my biggest problem is hurry. Right? Like I would have thought I need more time. I need to be more efficient, more productive. I need to manage my schedule more. I need to multitask more. I need a different app, right? I need a different program. And the way that you unpack it in the beginning of the book, and certainly I love the backstory with John Ortberg and Dallas Willard and this quote, this really powerful quote of you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life, but how you unpack it. And one of the things that really stuck out to me and has affected me even to this day is think of yourself when you're in a hurry. Hurry has no time for love. Hurry has no time for patience. You are easily angered. You're short-tempered. You're irritated. And I think of myself, and when I'm in a hurry, I'm the worst version of myself. And that rocked my world because I thought, okay, my problem is not I need more time or I need to manage my schedule. My problem is I'm exactly what you say in this great quote by Dallas Willard. But if you can cut out hurry, it fixes so many of those issues that we experience that we may not realize are stemming from hurry.
Yes. And the irony is that, you know, the great myth is that hurry equals productivity. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't. Right. Often hurry will actually sabotage. If you say, but I want to live a meaningful life or I have a lot of responsibility, or often hurry will actually sabotage that, not aid it. Right. You know, Jesus was not a hurried person, yet he was deeply impactful in the world and did a lot of things. You know, there's that line in the Gospel of John, if all the things were written about Jesus, the world itself could not contain all the books. You know, of course, it's hyperbole, but, you know, he was deeply fruitful is New Testament language, not productive is American language. but without being hurried.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a myth that this kind of frenetic, go, pace, constant distraction, multitasking, doing too many things, overcommitting is somehow how you live a meaningful life. And I just think it is an absolute lie.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I mentioned this, but since reading your book, and even since reading your book, I then went and read Soul Keeping by John Ortberg, and I've just been so fascinated, like kind of pulling this thread of doing this work in my own life. But since reading your book, I make decisions differently when I put them through the filter of hurry. So if I've decided, which I have, I've decided, even months ago, intentionally, I'm not going to hurry. As much as I can avoid it. With kids, with chaos, you sometimes have to, but as much as I can control it. So as a very practical example, a few weeks ago, I texted my girlfriend, Nikki, that I work out with all the time. She's one of my buddies. I was like, hey, you want to work out in the morning? And she said, yeah, come with me to spin at 7 a.m. Well, I was planning to work out at 5 because I go early so that I don't have to rush. And I was in my mind doing the calculation. If I go with her at 6, I could rush home at 7. I could take a really quick shower, get my makeup on, be out the door by 7:30. And everything in my mind was like, no, that would require me to hurry. So I'm not going to do that. So I was like, no, thanks. Enjoy your spin class. I'm going to go at 5. And I did. And I went on my own. I made a different decision because one decision required me to hurry and one didn't. And it's amazing how practical this application of this content in your book and your teaching can be. It really can change how you make decisions. And it's not that it didn't work out. It's not like, well, you need all this margin. You don't need to do anything. No, I still did what was important to me, but I made the decision differently because I chose one that wouldn't require me to hurry. And so it's just fascinating how this can have such a practical application. But I'm curious for you as the author, and this book has been out for a little while now, what did you learn about yourself in writing it? Because, I'm an author as well. Like writing a book is an experience. What did you learn about yourself, or what surprised you about the process of writing this book for you?
I think what surprised me is just how writing a book does not make it true of your life.
Yeah.
And how the enemy will kind of often come against us in our deepest places of calling from God. Or, you know what I mean? If there's areas in our life that God is targeting to form us, grow us, mature us, expand and enlarge us, the enemy is also targeting those same areas to deform us, sabotage us, ruin us. And so if, that point in my life is the speed at which I move through the world, there's a force, internal and external, that is trying to slow me down to the pace of love. And there is a force that is trying to speed me up to out of sync with love, And so I've just been learning a lot more on the back end of the book than through writing the book. The writing the book was a joyful experience of just kind of writing up all the things I've been learning over the years and experimenting and living into. That book was very much, in that season of my life, was very much like born out of my lifestyle. But then the book did really well. And so now there's like all these, possibilities and travel and, people wanting to talk and all this, that comes with it. And quickly got, out of the very rhythms that I was proposing in order to spread the message of the book, and realized, whoa, I had a couple months there where I got sucked into it and then realized, oh my goodness, this is like, it wasn't like blatant hypocrisy. Like I was intentionally doing it. I was just getting sucked into it's the whole, I think it's Greg McKeown who talks about how success often ends up becoming failure for people. The very thing that made somebody successful, often then that success makes them a failure at the thing they did in the first place.
Right.
So I've learned a lot since the book came out about just how hard it is to live into those convictions, especially when things are going well. And so I'm learning a lot.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've heard someone say, similar to what you said at the beginning, that authors write the book they need to read. And that is so true for my life. I write the things that I'm struggling with and learn. And I think it's fascinating too, because it's great accountability. The things that I write about or talk about or teach on life balance or being present with your kids or whatever those things are, in just the fact that I teach it, and it holds me accountable to live it, because you're immersed in that.
Yes.
And I could totally see how the success of the book, which is a good thing, that it's helping people, it's going to open all those doors that leads you into having to make those decisions of what you say yes to and what you say no to, which I was actually going to ask about that, because I first heard about your book from our pastor. I go to Church of the City here in Franklin, and our pastor, Darren Whitehead, talked about it. And he talked about it just such
I'm coming to visit you guys this September.
Oh, good. I will make sure that I'm there. But he had this, this raving review talking about it, and that's what made me want to go buy it. But as you talk to people, your book, a lot of books help people. Your book hit a nerve. Like, it hit a pain point. It's the reason people reread it a couple times and take it on the road with them all the time, everywhere they go. Like, what surprised you about that? Or what have you learned about that? Or what have you seen in terms of just, I'm sure, as an author, and I experienced this, you write something and you hope it helps people. And you write things that you believe in the content, but you have no idea until it's out in the world, out in the wild, how it's going to do. And we certainly have metrics of success, but gosh, the response to this book, even just from what I've heard and experienced from friends and community and coworkers, it is such a pain point. Talk a little bit about how you've experienced watching this connect with people.
Henry Nouwen, the writer, said what is most personal is most universal. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And this book has surely been that experience. Like, what was personal to me, turns out was not just for me. It was a lot of other people that was my pain point. Turns out it was a lot of other people's pain point. Back to what you were saying, when I first came across that line from the philosopher Dallas Willard, quote, "Hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day." And then he said, quote, "You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." When he first said, hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day, I was like, what?
Yeah.
If you were to ask me, I'm the same as you. Like, if you were to ask me prior to hearing that line, you were to ask me years ago, what's the greatest challenge? I live in one of the most secular, progressive, and at multiple levels dysfunctional cities in the Western world. Like, I live on the edge of the map, literally. You were to ask me, like, what's the greatest challenge you face in following Jesus in Portland, Oregon, the city that is very hostile to Jesus at multiple levels, very progressive, uber secular, super hedonistic, very anarchist right now. What's the greatest challenge you face? I don't know what I would have said, but I don't think hurry would have even made it into the top 10, much less the number one.
Right.
But yet so my first reaction was like, what are you talking about? Hurry? And then I thought about it for a minute, and then it was like a tuning fork moment. Like, I used to play music. I don't know have you ever seen a tuning fork that people use like to tune guitars or pianos?
Yep.
If you're not familiar, that's like this little metal tuning fork. You hit it, and it's, tuning fork is tuned to say middle C or a note. And if you know like music theory, middle C wasn't created by human beings. It's woven into the fabric of creation. God created middle C. It's just there. It's out. It's like gravity or E equals MC squared. It's just there.
Yeah.
And, when you hit a tuning fork, if you're close enough to it, you feel middle C like reverberate in your bones as your bones like come into contact with the reality that is middle C in the fabric of the universe. And I had this like tuning fork moment where it was just like a deep part of my soul just started to feel that tremor of, whoa, I'm coming into contact with a piece of truth that is deeply woven into the fabric of reality, that hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day, and you must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life. And I just started to then realize that hurry was the root issue underneath so many of the symptomatic issues and problems of my life at multiple different levels, spiritual, emotional, relational, vocational, and started to live into it. And so that was a personal pain point for me. You put a book out, you're like, this really helped me. It seemed to help my church. Let's see if it helps some other people. And it turns out it did. So it turns out what is most personal is most universal, that for a lot of us, this is the pain point. This is the tuning fork. Wow, something is deeply off, and we have to radically reorient our lives.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's just, to your point, it is so in line with the truth. And you have such great example from Scripture and even Jesus's life, which seems so basic and simple. And you even talk about this in the book. But it's like, what else would we be trying to do other than live like Jesus? And you unpack this, but I have felt in my life when I'm listening to a speaker, for example, or whatever, they will say something, and it's the way you describe the tuning fork moment. It's like my spirit is in agreement. It's like everything in me is like, yes. And then I've had the opposite, where you're hearing someone that's super charismatic or super inspirational,
like,
and what they're saying, my spirit is like, no. And it's just amazing how we have the Holy Spirit in us that will agree. Like, yes, this is in agreement and alignment with what God's truth is. It propels you into wanting to learn more and know more, even as when I dug into Soul Keeping by John Ortberg, and he talks about Dallas Willard, whose quote you start with. He talks about how he describes him as like a man almost incapable of hurry. Like everything about his pace, his tone, and I was fascinated by that. And I thought, I want to be like that. I'm so not like that.
Yes.
I talk fast. I walk fast.
Willard literally, when he died, on his refrigerator in his house, had like a 1-pager he'd written up on hurry with like definitions of hurry, scriptures about it, invitations to slow down.
Wow.
We must start today. So this was not just like an off the cuff comment that he said to John years ago. Like he literally died with this put up in front of him every single day. And he'd been living into this vision of, what Pete Scazzero calls a slow down spirituality for who knows how many decades. And yes, it had formed him. I never got the honor of meeting Willard, but it formed him by his reputation. And Ortberg is that way. Like when you're with John, I mean, he is just a delight. Oh my gosh, just so present, so unhurried, so calm, so wise, so contemplative, so thinks before he speaks, so in touch with both the grief of his life and the joy of the moment. I mean, it's just like, you're like in a presence of somebody whose body is moving through the world differently than your own.
Yeah.
And it is so compelling. That's who I want to be when I'm 60 something.
Now, listen, I know that we're talking about some of the practical things that you can do to train yourself. And I loved how you just set the expectation up front. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time. Don't get discouraged because it's worth it. And so one of the things I would love to ask you just kind of as we wrap up, when you talk about this vision, I love how you walk through that, this vision. What is your vision for the impact that this makes? I know you've already seen some of it, since this book launched, but what do you hope people experience when they do this? What do you hope people gain from this? How do you hope their life is different as a result of eliminating hurry from their life in this practical training kind of way? What does that look like for you?
A friend of mine always says the meaning of life is relationships. And another way to say that is that the point of the spiritual journey, the whole meaning and purpose of the human existence is to become a person of love as defined by Jesus, both receiving love from God and then giving love back to God and to those around us. And if that's the meaning of life, then hurry is the path that will take us away from the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And slowing down is the way of Jesus, is the straight and narrow way that will take. So not to sound cliche, but I hope that lots of people, myself included, become more loving and more present to relationships through and doing more productive, good work. I'm all for all that stuff too in the world. And there's a process to it. If you, I'm careful to not overpromise and underdeliver. It is a long, hard journey. And often as you become aware of just how hurried you are, it can create a kind of neurosis because you start to realize, I'm hurried all of the time, So Greg McEwen has that line, there are two types of people in the world right now, those who are burned out and those who realize they're burned out.
Yeah. That's good.
And that's he's deliberately being provocative there. Not all people are burned out, but he talks about the odd psychology where often the people that feel the most burned out are actually people that might be actually more emotionally healthy, but they're just more in tune with their emotional lives. They're more in tune with their body. They're more aware. They have a higher value for being emotionally healthy and present and joyful and at peace. So actually they might be they might feel a little bit more neurotic, but they might actually be the ones that are further down the path.
Yeah.
I think the same with hurry. Once you have this category, once you start trying to live into these rhythms, once you realize how hard it is, it's often the opposite of what you expect. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm so hurried all the time. This is so hard. But it could actually mean that you're making progress. So there's whenever I teach on spiritual formation in our church, whenever possible, I use this simple graphic that's called the J curve, and it's from learning theorists. And they talk about, if you can imagine, it's hard to do with my hands, but if you can imagine like a graph that's shaped like a J that goes way down, bottoms out, and then goes back up and then past where it started.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of learning is. You know, when you first start trying to learn a new skill, whether it is playing the piano or playing the guitar or painting or slowing your life down, you get worse before you get better.
Yeah.
So like as you try what they call deliberate practice, you actually just stumble all over yourself right and left. And you'd be like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's getting worse. It's getting harder. Every time I try to do this, it's worse. You know, like for people that intro Sabbath, I always talk about the J curve. You might kind of enjoy your day off, and then you decide, oh, a day off's not the same thing as a Sabbath. And you start to understand what a Sabbath is. And then you try to practice it. And the Sabbath might be a horrible day. Your first couple of Sabbaths might be weird and anxious. And you get in a fight with your spouse and things go terribly wrong. You're like, why am I doing this? I was having an okay day off before.
Right.
And now I'm having a bad Sabbath. That's the J curve. And people quit right before they hit rock bottom. You got to stay with it. Like any skill, you start to rebuild it. I remember, this is a music analogy, but I played guitar for years. And when I first learned how to play guitars before YouTube, when you actually had to like learn from other people or take lessons or whatever, when I first started learning guitar, I learned wrong, as most people do, where if you're familiar with guitar, with the pick, when I was like trying to pick, a line or whatever, I would strum all down, like down every single time, down, 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 down. And actually proper technique is down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Long term, you can actually go way faster, make way less mistakes, and play better with proper technique. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, out. But it's kind of counterintuitive. You just kind of start doing all down. And so I remember when I learned that, I had to basically relearn how to pick. And I remember I'd progressed so far, and then I started trying to do everything down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And I got way worse.
Yeah.
And all these things that I could play pretty good before sounded horrible. And I sounded like an idiot. And I was blundering my way through because it's the J curve. I got worse. And then I eventually got back to where I was. And then I eventually doubled and got way better.
Yeah.
So that's how a lot of things work. So with Hurry, it could be like, all right, vision, I want to live a slower, simpler life. I want to become a person of love. Intention, I'm going to take this moment. I'm going to decide. I'm going to make the sacrifices. Means, you lay out your practical, like, here's the things I'm going to do, whether the things in my book or your own things or whatever. And then stick with it. It's the J curve. You might get worse before you get better. It might take you a while just get to back where you are now, but stay with it. It's a cumulative, it's compound interest. It'll do great stuff in you over a long time.
Yeah, I love that permission you gave us for people that are going to try this week or this month, and then they get frustrated because of exactly what you said. You're like, this is normal. You're going to get worse before you get better, but it will pay off and it will get even better.
Right.
John Mark, I have quoted your book to 1 million people on stages, on my show. I quote it in my new book coming out in September, Take Back Your Time. I love this book so much, and I think everybody should buy it, and everybody should read it, and everybody should do it. But for anybody watching, tell them where they can follow you on Instagram and to get a copy of your book. And please also, while you're at it, tell us about your new book, because you have a new one coming out that I'm so excited about, but we just focused on this. But tell us about that one as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find online, johnmarkcomer.com, and JOHNMARK, pretty easy to do. I'm starting a new nonprofit called Practicing the Way at practicingtheway.org. We'll be releasing discipleship resources in the years to come. And I have a new book coming out. I just announced it last night. It's called Live No Lies. It's out in September. I've never worked harder on anything in my entire life. And I'll leave you with this one just teasing line. The psychologist David Benner once said, the problem is not so much that we tell lies, but that we live them. So the book is about that.
Oh, I cannot wait to read it. This has helped me so much, and I know that one will as well. John Mark, I know you are busy and have a lot of opportunities. Thanks so much. Thanks for taking some time with us, for being so present, and for teaching us. I really appreciate it.
You bet. See ya. Thank you for having me on.
All right, y'all, I'm going to answer some of your questions that you submitted on social media. Let's see what we got here. I left a toxic 11-year relationship and feel overwhelmed. Where do I start? First of all, congratulations. The fact that you said this is toxic, it went on for a really long time, lets me know how hard that must have been for you. And for anyone watching right now that has left something that was really difficult, whether it was a relationship or a job, where you had this part of your life that took up so much time, certainly so much mental space and energy and emotions, and you have left that behind, you might be feeling the same way. I feel overwhelmed. Where do I start? The first thing I want to encourage you is give yourself grace. You are figuring out a new season of life, a new normal. You're even relearning who you are and who you want to be. You always saw yourself in reflection of that relationship or that role or that season. You always saw yourself as a part of that. And now, through all your courage, you have left that behind and you're having to relearn who you are. So first, I want to just encourage you, give yourself grace. It's going to take some time, like learning anything new. Learning yourself in this new season is going to take time, patience, kindness, and grace for yourself in the process. The second thing I want to encourage you to do, and this is super tactical, I actually encourage people to do this in my book, Take Back Your Time, because this affects our time, but it also affects how we view ourselves and the decisions that we make. I want to challenge you to do an exercise. I want you to write down 3 to 5 words of who you want to be. So these can just be adjectives. There's no right or wrong answer here. Don't overthink it. You're probably not showing it to anyone. This is just for you. Sit down and think about, and maybe pray about, if you're a believer, pray about and think about, who do you want to be? Who do you want to be in this new season of life? Who do you want to be in this new chapter that God is writing for you? What do you want to be known for? What do you want people to say about you or think about you? Just take some time and write down, what are those top adjectives? I give some examples in my book, but some of mine, for example, are hardworking. I want to be a person of integrity. I want to be fun. See, what's interesting is when you stop to write down the adjectives of who you want to be, not who you think you already are, but who you want to be, well, then that informs decisions that you make. That informs how you spend your time. That informs what you say yes to, what you say no to, and it certainly informs how you feel about yourself. Because what's interesting is we are a result of our actions. So when you decide who you want to be, you make different actions and you literally become the person that you want to be. I know this sounds super practical and tactical, but it's actually true and it really does work. So as you enter this new chapter and you enter this new season, and this is for any of you that feel like you are in a new season of reinventing yourself, learning who you are and who you want to be, you can do the same exercise. Write down a list of 3 to 5 adjectives of who you want to be. And then let that become this compass, this true north that helps you understand what decisions to make and the new chapter that you want to create for yourself. Again, I just want to say congratulations on walking away from this thing that was bad for you and stepping into the good plans that I believe God has for you. I know it took a lot of courage, and I'm really, really proud of you. All right, let's answer one more before we wrap up today. Working to get voice and dance teaching business going, but also want to be a health coach. Oh, I bet so many of you that are entrepreneurs or have businesses can relate to this. You want to do all the things. You've got all the ideas, and even your new ideas are sprouting new ideas before you can even act on the initial ideas. And oh, by the way, all the ideas are brilliant. They're all going to change the world, and they're all going to make money. All of them. Here's the thing. First of all, I can relate because I have 100 ideas a minute. Here's the thing I would encourage you. I want you to make a list of all your ideas. Voice lessons, dance lessons, health coach, and you probably have some more you didn't even mention on this tiny paper. I want you to make a list of all of them. And then I want you to put them through a series of tests. Here are some things to consider to figure out which idea is the best idea. Which idea is the strongest idea, the idea that you should act on. Okay, I'm going to give you a few parameters. If you're taking notes, you can write these down or you can pause it, come back and write it down later because this is really practical. One thing you need to think about is, can this idea make money? So you put a check mark next to any idea that can make money. If it solves a problem, if it has a target market, it can make money. You put a check mark next to any ideas that can make money. That's one thing you need to consider. Number 2, are you willing to act on this idea? It doesn't matter if it's the best idea in the world. If you're not going to really do it, then you don't need to move forward. So will you really take action on this idea? Or is it just one of those things that you got inspired by when you were in the shower, right? If you will truly, honestly act on this idea, put a check mark next to that one. Another thing to think about is, are you excited about it? Like, are you excited about this idea? If it's just an idea that you're not excited about, well, you're probably not going to have a lot of fun and you're probably not going to stick with it. If you're excited about this idea, put a check mark next to any ideas that you're excited about. Another thing to think about, does this idea move you in the direction of your vision? The assumption, of course, is that you have a vision for where you want to be and what you want to do. So what are your goals for this business, any business? What do you hope it does for you and your family? What direction do you want it to move you in your life? And then, with that in mind, look at your list of ideas and put a check mark next to any ideas that move you in the direction of your vision. They get you to where you want to be. I have so many ideas, y'all, and this cuts out a lot of them. They just don't move me in the direction of where I want to be. They're fun ideas. I'm excited about them, but they're not moving me to where I want to be. So ask yourself, does this idea move me in the direction of my vision? If so, put a check mark by it. A similar question to the first one I asked you, but does it solve a problem? And even more so, does it solve a big problem, an important problem, a problem that people really need solved in their life? For those ideas that solve a big problem, an urgent problem, put a check mark next to those ideas. I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, face masks wasn't a huge market outside the medical industry, right? And then a year ago, everyone was making face masks. It solved a big problem because you had to wear them everywhere you went. So problems can be seasonal. They can be current event related. They can be different depending on your industry. So does this idea solve a big, urgent, important problem? If so, put a check mark next to that idea. Those are just a few questions you can ask yourself to help you score and rank all your ideas to find the best ideas, the ideas that you're excited about, that can make you money, they solve a problem, people will actually buy it, that you're willing to act on, that move you in the direction of your vision. When you start to tally up the score of the ideas that have the most check marks, those are going to be your best ideas. Those are the ideas that you're going to want to act on. For any of you all that are watching right now and you're thinking, I'm in the same boat, I want to do something, but I'm not sure what. Several years ago, I actually created a course specifically for you. This is called Business Idea Bootcamp, your 4-step course to finding your best business idea. I walk you through step by step how to brainstorm all the ideas from the places that you are the strongest in your life, and then narrow that list of ideas down to find your best business idea so you will know which idea you should act on. If you want more information on that course, you can go to businessboutique.com. But this is a great question, and I hope this helps you understand which idea, voice lessons, dance lessons, or health coach, or any others that you want to act on. I can't wait to hear how it goes. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for joining me as always. And for more encouragement on becoming the person you want to be, you can visit ChristyWright.com.
Mercy Me is coming to Pittsburgh. The Together Again tour with Mercy Me, Crowder, and special guest Andrew Rip. Thursday, October 5th. Bring your family and friends to the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh for Mercy Me, Crowder, and Andrew Rip live in concert. 3 multiple award-winning artists on one stage for one night. Let your spirit soar, your heart sing, and your faith ignite. Mark your calendars for Thursday, October 5th. Get your tickets now at mercyme.org.